As a disclaimer, I have to say, I am by no means any type of a professional. I'm simply just somebody who has a friend who wants to learn how to texture some clothing models in Second Life, and I wanted to be of service. And I thought that I would help um, not only my friend, but other people who want to express their creativity and possibly earn some cash making clothing in Second Life. Okay, so what I've done here is I'm trying to give a quick, simple explanation on how to work on this stuff. You're going to go to File and Open. You're going to pull in the textures that you've downloaded from Second Life. So you've purchased a model, you've downloaded this file, and probably from Marketplace in your received items folder, and you get these images, and you're going to need them to create your texture in order to place it onto some Second Life clothing. So you're going to bring in multiple different things. When you're dropping a texture onto clothing in Second Life, the thing about it is this: it's not baked. When I say baked, if you were making mesh instead of a 3D program, you would be texturing the thing in Photoshop. You would create your texture in Photoshop, but then you would bring it into your 3D program and allow that global light that's around your platform to kind of hit the clothing and bake the texture in. So it would look a lot more realistic, lighting and shadow wise. In order to get around that, I try to use some little tricks and tips, but it's really not going to be exactly the same. However, I'll be honest with you. There are many, many people who have even original mesh that they've created from scratch and textured it and baked it in a 3D software program, brought it into Second Life, and it's still not that good. And I'm not saying that to put anybody down. What I'm saying is, don't count yourself out. If you're not a 3D artist, and maybe you want to be one day, but maybe this is your beginner space, or maybe you don't want to be a 3D artist and you just like to play in Photoshop. I really don't think that you should be intimidated or let anything stop you, because you could get creative in Photoshop and you can really do a lot. So this is your beginner level, but let's start editing some layers, and I'll show you some simple stuff. You can create a new layer and work on your new layer, and then blend it with the other layers. Or you can actually just work right on the layer. So I'm going to show you just example what I mean by that. If I go to my shadow map layer, I'm going to just show you that I'm working on my shadow map layer by taking all the other ones out of the equation. If I go to my shadow map layer and say I want to put a pattern of cupcakes on this layer, I could actually just go into this effects and pattern overlay, go down to the bottom, find my cupcake pattern. Now as you can see, it's covering up the whole board. We don't want that. So we're going to take the blend mode and we can change it to whatever we want. We could change it to multiply, we could change it to soft light, we could change it to color burn. And I just changed the opacity, which will also play with and will come in handy. But let's just say like we're right there and we're on color burn at 76%. Let's scale it down. Okay, so now we've got a little cupcake pattern on this dress. Well, see, now we're on the shadow map layer. We could take this ambient occlusion, we could drag it up top and do soft light, let that through. So now it's adding more depth. The ambient occlusion, I guess, I like to say depth. It adds more depth, but really it'll add more definition, more wrinkles or whatever it is in the clothing. If I want to change that soft light and go to color burn, you're going to see how it changes it. Now it's gotten a lot darker, but you can see those folds and those shadows more like a baked on texture than you would have before. So if we go to multiply, now I've sort of lost some of that white and it appears more gray. If you go to soft light, it seems like it's brighter. Now one of the tricks that I like to do is that I like how that looks because it's nice and bright, but maybe I'm going to duplicate that layer, and since I'm already in the soft light mode, my new layer, which is the copy of it, so we're going to call that number 2, is also going to show us a soft light, and it's going to allow it to come through again. So you'll watch it change now. Okay, so, okay, that looks okay, but I think I still want more definition. So maybe I'll go over here to color burn, but instead of having it on opacity and letting this layer allowed to be at 100%, maybe I'll just reduce it. Ah, what happened there? It's getting a little lighter. I'm still seeing some pretty good definition. Yeah, I like that. That's looking good to me. I'd like the white to be whiter, but honestly, I mean, I could go in and create a whole new seamless texture and not have it be white at all. I could have it have a different background. But let's just say I go into this layer and I go into the effects and I go to color overlay. And instead of doing gray, maybe I'll do some type of a purple. And it looks like it's just covering it right now because it's on normal. But if I do maybe soft light or overlay, now you're going to see it change, right? So that's one thing. You could also do it into a gradient overlay. There's different styles of gradient overlays. You can scale it. You can multiply it. You can pick different colors. And like I said, I mean, this isn't something that I would necessarily design. I'm just trying to show you the features of what you can do in your different layers. So now that we've done this, we'll go to color burn to really make it, you know, really stand out. And maybe I'll just take the opacity down just a little bit to make those cupcakes look a little bit more crisp. So now you can see we're working on the ambient occlusion layer, but if I take this off with the eye, it's gone. See, because that's the layer that we put the gradient overlay in. Okay, now the other factor is I'm just going to drag these to the trash and start over just to show you that you could kind of do something else with it. And if I'm going to go ahead and add this layer 1, I'm going to put it on the top, and I'm going to go to my paintbrush, and I'm going to pick white because I don't want anything to be altered color wise. I just want white, and I'm going to choose a larger brush. That's about right. So say what I might do is I might go over here and on this new layer draw white and cover, make sure I get all the edges of the dress. And it doesn't really have to be neat because you're never going to see the outside of those lines, so you can color outside the lines. Okay, so I'm just filling this in. And this looks like the back of the dress. So I'm going to name this dress back. I'm going to create a new layer. And on this layer, I'm on it. I'm going to go like this and do the same thing, and then I'm going to name it dress front. Now this is how I particularly try to work because I find that it's just easier to keep yourself organized. If you have to undo something, it makes things a lot easier. Okay, so now I'm going to name that one dress front. Now I can start doing some really interesting things. First of all, let me go ahead and put these on soft light, and you're going to see right away that you can see everything behind it now. Okay, so dress front, I can now go into the effects. I can put a pattern on that, multiply it, and now you see that pattern. Okay, so there's lots of different patterns you can bring in. like for example this one, if I scale it, snap to origin. Now I have that pattern on the dress. I can even burn it into the dress. Okay. So now I like that, but I want to get it on this other layer for the dress back also, and I want it to be exactly the same. So I'm going to copy that layer style, go over on that layer, paste layer style. Okay, so now I have both things exactly the same, even though they're on totally different layers. Okay, so let's just say, for example, now I want to bring these ambient occlusions into the picture, and I really want to make those sort of pop, and that's burned in, but it's still kind of too dark. Let me go over to multiply. Nope, that's not going to be the one I want. Pin light, that brightened things up a little bit. And this is at the bottom. You can see it's not going to work right. It's got some, even though on the front it didn't do that, on the back it kind of did. So we'll go back over there. So we're going to look at the dress back. If you want to adjust that pattern, double click in it and you hit snap to origin. You see, and now we've changed it. We brought it back to where it should be. Okay, so now let's just say, for the argument's sake, that we've created our different layers, we've played with things. You could bring in another layer and you could put a heart on it. You know, there's a lot of brushes you can download, so you go into your brush tool and you'll see that you can download brushes and install them. I would Google that. But like, here's a leaf. So yeah, there's a leaf brush. So say you wanted to bring a heart in or whatever you were going to do. Obviously that's not working. But let's just say this is your end result and you're happy with this and you want to bring this dress into Second Life. Okay, so you would go to File, go to Save As, and then over here you go to Targa and you name it something. Now if you're doing gachas or you want multiple styles for that one dress, I would just put in here, like, you know, whatever, blue glittery drama and then save it. I usually do this 32 bits per pixel. You go into your move tool if you want. Okay, so now I have this, right? I've already saved it, and let's just pretend it's something that's amazing. Okay, so we go to File, Open. I'm going to bring this and open it just to like push the envelope. Now I'm going to get rid of these other deals. So now this is all I have open, this new image I just saved. As you can see, background copy. I'm going to duplicate, toss that in the trash. Okay, so now what I want to do is go up here and I have filters. I can use filters on it, which can do lots of things. So if you go to your filter gallery, it sort of will give you a preview. So if you go to texture, you can see that you can add that to it. It's totally changed it and made it look more like a softer fabric maybe. You can intensify it. You can bring up the contrast or lower the contrast. You can play with it. There's tiles, texturizer, there's all different ones. Okay. I've seen people make it look like plastic or latex, all sorts of things. See, there's plastic wrap. No, you would hit OK or cancel depending on if you would like something. If you go to image adjustments, some things you can do is you can bring up your brightness. Okay, you can bring up your contrast, whatever you want to do. Exposure. Bring up the exposure on a pattern to brighten it up. This is a fun one to play with. The shadows. So this is fun. You can really see a lot of changes. Bring up your highlights, change the radius of things, color corrections, contrast, and this is where I think shadows and highlights, I think that, you can really get closer to, um, making something that looks more baked on by playing with your shadows and highlights. And once you're done, you hit OK, and then File, Save As, back to Targa, and I would just replace it. Okay, when you get your end result. And once you're all done, then you know how to upload your image into Second Life, and we'll do another video on how to apply your textures into onto your models and get you going.